Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Dan McDermott. Another Google Plus week is on with lots to talk about, several new features, also a little bit of controversy. Eric Schmidt is selling $1.5 billion worth of shares of Google. Chunk of change. Also, there's some drama going on. A prominent user, Brandon Campo, in a bit of a tiff with a Google community manager. We'll get into that a little bit. Also, some cookies are being left by Google on iOS, apparently against the terms of service for iOS, and an FTC complaint has been filed, and we'll get into that as well. But first, we have a bunch of new features that were rolled out. Vic Gandotra did a nice summary explaining all of the different features that we've seen come, and I'm going to bring Alan Furstenberg from New York into our conversation here. Alan, I guess the first one is it's a shame Oleg's not here because I think he hates the What's Hot feature, and I don't think you're a big fan of it either. But I guess you can now adjust the volume of What's Hot. Have you played around with that, and any thoughts?
I've played around with it a little. Evening, Dan. I'm sure a lot of people are thrilled now that it's there because they can turn it off and set it to 0. What most of the people who have left it on, though, have noticed is that it's actually behaving differently than the old What's Hot stream that used to be coming up. It used to show up once a day or once every who knows how often because no one really understood what it was doing. But when it came up, you were allowed to scroll through the various What's Hots. Now what it seems like it's doing is it kind of randomly, every so often, decides to toss in a post that may or may not be popular by some definition of popular. Who really knows? At any rate, it's not just that you can adjust the volume, it's that the whole way that it seems to have worked is kind of changed around a little bit. So there are actually people who seem to find it interesting. Personally, I ignore it. It just kind of scrolls through my screen with hundreds of other posts on my screen.
Well, let me ask Eric about this. Eric Rice is joining us. Eric, I think mainly this is for new users, right? For folks, the Facebook people who come over and they really don't know what the heck's going on, because anybody who has a large number of circles or a large number of people in your circles, you've already seen most of those things anyway, right?
Right, or there are things that have come around months ago.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's not really what's hot right now. It's sort of what was hot, a couple days ago or a week ago, something like that.
7 months ago.
So
if we're lucky, we'll see dancing squid animations again.
That was classic.
I'd love to see filters that would enable you to have like a profile of the things that you have seen, so you avoid. And this could probably be applied to everything. You avoid seeing the same repetitive content over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, so you know that when somebody else reshares the same thing for the 20th time, that instead of actually seeing it for the 20th time, you just get a nice little notice saying, hey, Dan has shared the same stupid cat picture for the 20th time, so you can safely ignore it.
Amusingly, Facebook does do that fairly well.
I'm not so sure they do it fairly well, because the way they lump things together kind of makes it unclear that...
Yeah, it's very keyword-driven. It's better at places like Christmas. Like, you and 12 of your friends posted about Christmas, and they lump it together. It's a start, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. But how many posts did you get of the... What's new and did Google add this week? I probably got 10 reshares from that, from Vic's.
I think the most interesting thing that I've seen come out of the latest changes to What's Hot is that there are now people who are saying, hey, let's create pages that have user-curated What's Hot information. So instead of using Google's automated junk showing up in our stream, let's actually curate some good stuff. Profile people who aren't necessarily hot but have good things to say. So we'll see where that goes.
I still think it's entry level. I think it's something for new users to get to find the funny cat pictures or the squid or whatever stupid nonsense that people share. But obviously, it's sometimes I'm in the mood for that. Like, I have a circle of funny people who post silly stuff, right? Once in a while, I'm in the mood. I want to see the stupid stuff, and I'll look at it and I'll laugh or whatever. But most of the time, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in news or tech or that kind of stuff. Okay, so Circles pages have a new look and better suggestions. Tell us about that, Alan.
This one, mostly, it's the layout is slightly different. They try to organize things a little bit better. Really, for people who have been around for a while, there's no huge dramatic changes.
Yeah.
But they try to lay it out just a little bit better so that people aren't quite as confused as they were about how do you manage the circles? How do you select a circle even? It's a little more consistent than it has been in the past.
Any other thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I haven't really used it. Good, Eric.
I just met with the TED people today, and you can't believe how many people don't know how to use anything. I was trying to explain with her how to share a circle, and I spent almost 10 minutes before I could show her how to share her circle. There's so much training, I think, needed for these Google things. And she said, is there anybody who's putting out some training videos on this stuff? She says, I don't know how to do anything in this. See, we've been doing this for about 4 or 5 months, but you can't believe how hard it is for somebody coming in from Facebook. He said, I'm a Facebook expert. I have no idea what I'm doing here.
Yeah, I think that's. I still think it's not as intuitive as it will eventually be. But then we don't want a clone of Facebook. You know, we want something different.
Well, come on. Facebook isn't exactly intuitive.
To a degree.
Facebook is anything but intuitive.
True. Fair point. Okay. All right. A new iPhone app has been released with instant upload. Anybody, Alan or anybody want to weigh in on that? Or
this is really Oleg's department because we know how much he loves the iPhone as well. But I think it's a good thing. The instant upload component for iPhone came out just after they aired a commercial on the Grammys featuring instant upload, so it's a good thing it came out when it did. The most interesting thing about the iPhone's instant upload compared to the Android one is that on the iPhone, the app has to keep running for the upload to take place. And if you quit the app within a few seconds, the upload will pause and it'll resume again when you restart the app. And this is, just the nature of how iOS works in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very useful. I have an iPhone, and it was really fun. I just love playing, walking around where there's Wi-Fi and just uploading stuff from wherever I am. It was really, really fast and really fun to use.
Okay.
I haven't updated it yet. I don't want to lose my incoming stream, which is still on the app.
That is the big downside.
That's the downside. Also, I am glad I heard about the instant upload from other people who were scared to death of it. They're like, whoa, yeah, no, do not turn that on. Because I don't think necessarily everybody uses every shot that they're taking on their phone, regardless of what kind of phone you have, for this is something I'm posting. I mean, I take pictures of random, useless stuff all the time for just reference.
Sure, so do I.
Took a picture as like a paint swatch, right? I'm not posting that to Google. I think someone's gonna forget.
Here's the neat thing about instant upload is that it instantly uploads it to Google Plus, and that's all. That's as far as it goes. Nobody else can see it there.
That's right. It's private, isn't it?
It goes into a private folder. What
Right.
I do a lot actually is I will take pictures of things on my phone, and I'll not because I want to look at them on my phone, not because I want to share them with anyone else, but because I want to go look at them in a higher resolution on my computer. So this is a really, really easy way, whereas before, I'd either have to mail it to myself, or I'd have to plug in my phone to my desktop later, or I'd have to move the chip over, or whatever. Now, I just go to Google Plus, and I'm there anyway, and can easily look at it. So I've been using instant upload since day one. They're finally almost making it useful in some ways. But I think it's probably one of the greatest features that Google Plus has going for it over Facebook.
One of the things I
use it a lot. Actually.
One of the things I saw in that video of Shepard Smith from Fox News talking about AT&T saying that he was in the top 3% of data users, and that on his phone, and that they were going to slow him down. Of course, he went ballistic, right? And brought a guy from Mashable. I forget, and on Fox News, and I think it's important for people to understand that there should be I assume there's a setting where it will only do instant upload if you're on Wi-Fi versus your data network, the cell network, right? We can change that setting, because I have it on either one because I have Sprint, it's unlimited, and I don't take that many pictures, but that could eat up a lot of data, put you in that 3%. Is that real? Are they really throttling it? Is there evidence of that, or is it a scam? Because I know if you tell people there's a limit, then they behave better and they don't use as much. Do you think it's a psychological scam, or do you think that they're really throttling people?
No, I think they're really throttling people. Yeah.
Yeah, what happened when Leo Laporte reported this when he was talking about this is that what they did is they said, we know you have unlimited, but you're in the top 1% of our users. Would you please use less? They actually sent him an email saying that.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let's see. We've got Hangouts can now support right to left languages. I was reading a story about some drama between Ahmadinejad in Iran and the supreme leader, Ayatollah, whatever, and they said that there were two websites that they had blocked that were pro-Ahmadinejad, and so I went to them just to see, and I translated them, and I noticed that, of course, Arabic or Persian, Farsi, I don't know, whatever language it was, they go right to left, and I think some Asian cultures do that as well. So is this, what's the significance of this, Alan? I know you're a big Farsi speaker.
It enables a few more languages that previously were not able to be supported in Hangouts to be supported in Hangouts. Not using one of those languages, I really couldn't give you too many more details than that.
Okay. If Brandon Campo were here, he could certainly weigh in on that since he's been interacting with some of those folks, apparently. Okay. Let's see. Another one you can find interesting people on the right hand side of your stream. I guess that's another.
Yeah. This is going to head down this, but you might remember about 20 or 25 shows ago, we were complaining about the list of people that were shown to new users, and one of the issues was that there was no way that we could actually see that list ourselves unless you were a new user. Here's the list. That's it.
Go find them.
Well, I mean, now we actually get to see the list. Yeah, I played with it a little bit today. It still looks like it's spaghetti that gets thrown against a wall that Google's trying to see if it's going to stick or not. It's I don't know. I mean, it's kind of interesting in the sense that you can actually click on the person and you'll see the most recent posts from that person, but it doesn't show you their profile. It doesn't show you other aspects about them. It's I don't know. It's kind of half-baked still. And it'll very happily recommend people who are already in your circles. It's a semi-static list. It'll tell you they're in your circle, but it'll still recommend them to you.
Yeah, but it's interesting they have brand pages in there as well.
Yes, I did notice they had paid. What I found most surprising, though, is they didn't have the Google Plus page. They didn't have a whole pile of Google pages in there, which you would think they would want people to subscribe to in order to get, the announcements of changes. So, once again, it's kind of poorly thought out, poorly implemented, big surprise.
Okay. All right, and let's see here. We've got the photo lightbox has been revised in response to feedback. That's always been a strong feature, right? In fact, Facebook just came up with several options for their equivalent photo lightbox, and they all look like Google Plus.
They look horribly worse. It's actually pretty shocking how badly Facebook imitated Google Pluses in this case, to the point where they kind of said, let's not talk about them. The new lightbox, the changes are pretty subtle in this case. One of the big complaints was that the caption in the previous change in the lightbox, the caption would kind of hover over the picture, and people kind of were justified in complaining, saying, "Hey, why are you now messing up our picture with the caption?" So they've removed that, and they've changed the sizing a little bit so that if you make the picture bigger, under some circumstances, it gets a little bigger than it was under the previous version. So they're small, they're subtle changes, but they're good changes based on what people were complaining about.
I think it's good that they're doing such a really great job at developing these things, because there's so many photographers, as we all discovered when there's so many photographers using Google Plus, as we all discovered when they first started sharing circles. And it was like, oh my God, if I see another photographer circle. But some of these guys are absolutely amazing, really talented. We had
just can't figure out who they are because of the onslaught of them.
Well, there's a lot of them, but there's some really famous, like Trey Ratcliffe. He popped up in our hangout a couple weeks ago. That was really neat, and there's just some guys who are just so talented, But there's definitely no shortage of them.
No, there's no shortage of them. But what's also pretty neat about them is they're a great example of the kind of communities that are getting formed in Google
Right.
Plus. And I think, as a social commentary, I've spoken to a bunch of the photographers. I've now worked with a bunch of the photographers. And almost all of them have said things like, yeah, I used to go out on photo walks or shoot pictures by myself, and now I'll go out with these people who I've met on Google Plus.
Yeah, and they
So
actually had an event in New York City where all these guys met and did a walkabout.
I was there.
Yeah.
Okay, and then of course Alan has some rather infamous photographic work in his resume, but that was thoroughly discussed and revealed in last week's show. Okay, we launched This is from Vic Gandotra's summary of things that they've done there. It says we've launched the Find My Face notifications. I don't even know what that is. What's that?
Basically, there's a setting that you can now set as part of your profile, and let me see if I represent this correctly, because I probably won't, that will let the system automatically detect you when people upload photos. It's similar but not identical to a
Okay, that sounds, yeah.
No, I think it's good, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it's really a shame that Oleg is not here, because I know he just spends hours a day on these different games that Google Plus offers. Gangs of Boomtown is now ready to play on Google Plus. How many hours or days have you spent on that, Alan?
I have spent negative 2 days on it so far. This is just, going back to, I just don't understand why Google keeps pursuing these games. I don't know anybody who plays them.
Oh, I'm sure that their metrics I'm sure there are people playing them. There's a whole different world out there. The Facebook
I'm sure there
people.
are. And the
Ironically, you forget about them because they're not in your stream. It goes from one extreme to the other. Facebook is in your face all the time. Here, it's forgotten about.
Right. I think here, when asked about it last, their commentary was the numbers on game usage is about where they want where they want them to be. But at the same time, in the developer groups where various game developers keep saying, hey, how do we get in on this? Their response is, we're working with a few select partners and we're not ready to open this up. So, who knows what's going on here, really.
Okay, I just got a question here from our chat room on Justin TV. And if you're looking for that, you're welcome to join that, because that's a chat that all of us watching or participating can see. He's asking, he said, I'm a monthly paying subscriber for Picnic. Will Google Plus have all the features of Picnic? There are many options missing in the G Plus version. What do you think, Alan? Is that something that's going to come down? It's just a matter of time, or what?
Actually, I was in a hangout with, I want to say Brian Moe, who is the community manager for Google Photos. Not exactly this question, but a very similar question, basically saying, hey, why are you guys getting rid of Picnic? His response was interesting. He kind of said, we were working on Picasa and Picnic and kind of planning out the next generation of it. And as we were designing it, it kind of evolved into Google Plus. That was around the time that Google Plus was starting their planning. So they basically they started pulling people off of Picasa and Picnic and putting them into Google Plus, and they've been doing that more and more. And the reason why Picnic is canceled is because all the developers are working on the Google Plus Creative Kit. So we're not I don't work for Google. Dan doesn't work for Google. We can't say anything about them officially. And if you ask them, they're not going to tell you what their future plans are. But I think it's a pretty good bet that eventually everything that's currently in Picnic will get migrated over to the Google Plus Creative Kit.
Yeah, it would be the best of kind of thing. Yeah.
I don't think it'll just be the best of. I think it'll be everything from it.
Mm.
Now, whether they're going to have a paid version and a free version like they do with the current Picnic, I don't know. I don't even think Google necessarily knows because they haven't figured out how exactly they're going to monetize this yet. Or if they have, they haven't told us, obviously.
I use Flickr.
I do think we're going to see everything from Picnic into the Google Plus Creative Kit eventually.
Anybody compare Flickr to anything? Because I use them. I've used them for years for my newspaper pictures. Because I can upload unlimited.
Mm-hmm.
I forget how much it is a year. It's dirt cheap. And you can.
It's like $24 or something.
Yeah, and you can upload unlimited photographs there, and they store them in the original size, and it's got a pretty good interface for people. If you want to put a URL to the photo, they can choose whichever size they want to look at, and there's some.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Plus, there's a lot of nice integration with WordPress plugins for Flickr.
Yeah, I think I've used Flickr for like 7 years. I duplicated my efforts and put them on G Plus just because. I'm really scared about the management at Yahoo and what's going to happen to Flickr. I really do not trust that company. And, I don't know what to do. I haven't found anything comparable to it. And it has just as strong of a community. If I tend to incidentally jeer when I hear photography and all of the wonderful things going on, this has existed on every network that's happened. There were all the major Flickr photo walks and the meetups and the tweet ups, and it just bounces around between mediums and mediums and mediums. So it's nothing personal against G Plus photographers. It's just their communities happen all over the place. This is not anything unique that one company's has invented. But I don't know what to do. If Flickr were to go away, I'm lost. I have no idea what would replace it.
I've seen a lot of people complaining that the social aspects of Flickr have diminished, but to me, that's never what I viewed it as. I viewed it as simply a place to store my photos online so that I could have them safely kept and be able to share a URL if necessary, or embed the picture in a story. And our newspaper websites, that's what I use. I just embed the actual picture from Flickr, and it works great. And it's cheap. And I agree with you. I have concerns because Yahoo's just, where do you begin to describe the mismanagement and bad luck they've had over the years? We'll see. But I don't know of a good replacement for that. And there are tools, Eric, I'm sure you're aware of, that if you do have a large collection, as I do, of years of stuff, there are tools where you can download in bulk entire sets or your whole photo stream, that sort of thing. So
I did that with Facebook photos and Flickr photos and put them on Picasa, and it's just as messy. Not worse. So it's like, I'll just deal with it later.
Okay.
Here. But I've used some of those tools.
Okay. Yeah, so, I like it. And Eric and I will be really screwed, and we'll have to share. If we find an alternative, if all hell breaks loose over there, then...
there are sites like PhotoBucket. Flickr had a reputation early on of being the snotty photo site, right? Remember, social sites are defined by the perception of what the user base is. And so Flickr was always that kind of snooty, snotty place, and then PhotoBucket was a trash heap where you just threw whatever. But hey, PhotoBucket's still around, and it's probably less about community as it is just bulk offloading of all of your content. Maybe we've taken the social elsewhere because we've been dancing around. We've left blogs in the dust, and we've been on Facebook and G Plus and MySpace, all these other places. So it's like the ultimate ADD algorithm, the web today.
Yeah, and having ADD, which would be evident to any viewers of the show, I can sympathize. Okay, so let's see. We've got before we get into all the drama stuff, we've got the last feature. The gray bar, the gray bar, black bar is now widely rolled out, but some users are reporting that they scroll off the page. I'm not sure what that's about. Alan, can you? I'm
Sure.
looking at mine to see what you're talking about here.
Yeah,
for some users, one of the changes that came with the latest changes to the gray bar and black bar big visual change on the gray bar, black bar is they upped the font size a little bit, and some of the data that was sitting in the black bar portion is now in the gray bar portion. So your notification counter, your ID, a couple of other things have been moved from the black bar to the gray bar. In doing that, a lot of people started noticing that in the past, when they could scroll down through all of their stream, the gray and black bars would stay at the top of the screen, would stay at the top of the window. You could see them no matter how much you scrolled.
Oh, they're static. Yeah.
Right. Some people are now reporting that instead of them staying there, they scroll off the screen.
That's me. I'm just doing it right now, and it's scrolling off the screen, and it used to not do that.
Okay. The trick, the reason why it does this, I started digging around. What a bunch of us discovered is that if you change your font size to make your font a little smaller, they will probably stay. They will probably go back to the default where they will stay stuck at the top, no matter how much you scroll. The reason for this is kind of interesting. Way back in August, they actually rolled out a change. They rolled out the change that would put them up there in the first place. I don't know how many of us remember before August, but before then they would always scroll off, no matter what you did. They made this change in August that would leave them that would put them at the top, but they said they were very conscious of small screens or small windows, so that if you had a small screen or a small window, they would scroll off to give you that little bit extra screen real estate.
Yes, I just did a control minus on mine, and it worked. You're exactly right. That's amazing. I didn't know that. If you just go control minus or command minus on the Mac, it works. It stays there.
Right. Or if you're looking at Google Plus in a relatively small-sized window and you scale up your window, it'll do the same thing. The reason appears to be just the way that they moved things around a little bit. It takes up just a little more space, and for some users, it's taking up enough space that it forces it into the small window behavior. So this isn't that part of it isn't a bug. It was designed to do that. The problem is their sizing on things have changed such that it now does it for more users under different circumstances. And I don't think anybody quite realizes that fact yet.
Alan, let's look at the Justin chat. We got some comments on this. One guy says, or one person saying they like the drop down better. One user said, or one viewer says it's ridiculously fat, wasted space, inexplicable. Another one says they don't like the size of the font in the black bar. It looks bloated. I'm curious for both of you folks in the Justin.tv chat room, if you could respond, if you could see if that fixes it for you. If you can control minus. But should you have to do that? Should you have to do...
To the new black bar, they changed the font, and it looks like it went from a kind of skinny, thin font to a bold version of the same font. So they did make the font look bigger. I'm not entirely sure that's the best bet, but I'm not a professional UI designer for a reason.
No.
I just was testing this on the width, and on the width, if you make the width smaller, it doesn't stay there. But if you make it wider, it does. At the full, if you have in other words, so if you go full screen, it always stays there. But if you make your screen a little bit skinnier, if it goes past, it chops off a little bit on the right, then it goes away.
Right, and Harold, that's not necessarily true. There are some users who are using small or narrow screens, so even at their fullest width, it will still scroll off. And
that makes sense.
And that's by design, apparently.
Yeah.
I think what they did, Alan. I think what they did, they went with a gray font on a black background, which is pretty subdued. But in order to draw a little more attention and make it more easily read on a wide variety of monitors, they went with a thicker font. Clearly, it's sort of almost like it's not an Arial black; it's more like an Arial bold type, regular Arial but bold sort of font. I'm not sure what they used. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they'll, as always, they'll respond quickly and efficiently to any feedback from users, as Google does.
Yes, I'm sure sometime in 2 months we will suddenly notice that the font has changed again without any explanation whatsoever.
Hopefully, Vic or somebody will say I don't like this, and then it'll get fixed like in a couple days. But it's neat, and I'll play with it, and we'll see. Okay, let's see. We got a bit of an FTC issue going on, and not rare for Google. But in a nutshell, Google. There was an article or a study came out. I forget the original source, but someone discovered that Google ads were putting cookies on iOS devices. So, and then an FTC complaint was filed, and then Google said, "Oops," or something to that effect. So let me get Eric. I know you're pretty well versed in this, and you've been posting about it. Why don't you give us kind of a quick layman's explanation of exactly what the issue is and what your thoughts are on it?
It's, I mean, for those that aren't deep into the tech world, when you go to a website, it will put a cookie, just like, in a regular web browser, a little bit of data, help you remember what it is that you've been doing. And Safari, the web browser on an iPhone or iOS device, has it set by default to not accept this kind of thing from third-party websites. And I think they allow you to read cookies from third-party websites, but I don't want them being put there. And it's kind of like a standard behavior. Google went to work around that so they could advertise to and pay attention to what users were doing, even though, by default, Safari was set to not accept these third-party cookies. So kind of a privacy issue. And Wall Street Journal discovered this when they called Google about it. Google immediately turned everything off. Like, quick, hide everything. And that's where everything kind of went downhill from there. And so there's a little bit of debate on, is Safari right or wrong for doing this? What's the expectation of this information? Are sites allowed to do this? And this has been a topic that's shown up with all of this. Who's uploading what to where, and where is information going? And, it's making a lot of sites look bad. And so we've yet to see how this is going to turn out.
Eric, do you buy they came out and said they weren't aware of it?
No, I don't.
You don't buy it. So when they shut it down, like you said, because like, oh shoot, we're caught.
I've been asked about that today. Somebody asked me if I was actually trolling. No, I don't honestly believe the oops defense. There's too many oops defenses for rather large things. If you're a small startup, couple guys, and you goof, okay, we get that. When you're a billion-dollar company, no, this is not.
I create a new meme. I hereby create a new meme, and then I'm throwing it to Alan. Oopsgate.
Oopsgate, right?
Alan, what do you think?
I disagree on this one, and here's why. I don't know if Eric's a programmer. As a programmer, one of the really difficult things that we have to deal with is the fact that every single browser implements something completely differently than every other browser. So if we're trying to position something just so on the screen, we got to test it on every browser because it's going to look different. If we want to have our website, if we want to have our widget, if we want to have a G+ button, and that's what it is in this case, it was the +1 button that got them into trouble. If we want to have our +1 button act the same in every single browser, we've got to sometimes do some pretty crazy and stupid looking things to get it to work the way we want on every single browser. So it wouldn't surprise me if the guy who was responsible for getting the +1 button to work on Safari just kept hacking around and saying, oh man, Safari's just doing something totally stupid and I have no idea why it's doing this really stupid thing. I'm going to keep fiddling until I get it to work. And maybe I've got to do something that's totally whacked out and out there to get it to work, but I finally get it to work. And I get it to go through quality control, and everyone signed off on it. And then someone says, oh, hey, did you know you're violating privacy? And then someone at Google says, shoot, we're violating privacy? Right. So yeah. I can easily believe that this was an oops caused by a programmer who is trying to get things to work around stupid problems in stupid browsers.
Yeah, now, who's not familiar with how the Safari is going to react in a certain way.
Who may have discovered that Safari did this, but I'll be honest. I use Safari on occasion, and I didn't know that was the default behavior of Safari. I don't know how many programmers do know that that's the default behavior of Safari. But what I do know is that if I need to get my button, my widget, to work the way it's going to on every single other browser, I may need to resort to some pretty convoluted tricks.
Well, they are capable,
Yeah,
even though they're large.
Making mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, like what Eric said is true to an extent, but also remember that the cars that were going through for taking the street view pictures, and they were capturing Wi-Fi data, and everyone freaked out. Europe freaked out. And apparently it
I
wasn't
think Apple
intentional,
has
right?
sold a few iPhones that they probably have enough laying around that they might have been able to test this properly. I mean,
well, but here's the thing.
We're not talking about a little startup.
They did test it properly. Their goal was to make sure that the +1 button worked on Safari the same way it does on every single other browser. And that's the test, and that's what they did.
And the other test is, what did they do when they discovered it, right? They didn't, they just, stopped it, right? They killed it. So, it's not...
But did they kill it because they got caught or because they didn't know? That's the question that we don't know the answer to.
I think they killed it because they didn't know.
We don't know.
Here's how I look at this. I could easily spin this another way. You want me to spin this another way? Sure. The Safari browser has a major security hole in it.
Yeah. That's the other way to do it. Yeah, because it's not reacting
Apple
like
released
every
a
other
browser with a security hole. Yeah. Here it is. They advertise this feature that is supposed to protect your cookies, and Google discovered a way to break out of that security hole. Therefore, Safari has a major security vulnerability in it.
The way that, we all want free sites. We like to go to Huffington Post or Drudge Report or NPR or whatever and look at content for free, Google+. And, of course, Google will eventually monetize this, I assume. But, you'll go to Zappos and look up Converse sneakers or whatever. And then all of a sudden on Huffington Post or Drudge Report or whatever site you're into, you'll start seeing ads for Converse sneakers. And that's because of cookies, right? I mean, we've all seen this. You'll do some obscure search on Amazon or whatever, and then all of a sudden you'll see ads for this product everywhere. It's helpful in a way, and they said that there was no personal data. In other words, they knew that that the thing would serve up an ad on this computer at this for this product, but they didn't know that it was Alan Furstenberg who was looking for the Zappos shoes, right? That it wasn't personal data. It was just this computer, can respond to this product. They've expressed an interest. There's a really interesting article in I can't remember, Washington Post or Wall Street Journal or New York Times about Target, about how they do the same thing in I guess almost an analog way, where they will determine if you're pregnant or not, because they know that that's a key time when you're open to developing a new shopping pattern, and that they'll discover that you've bought cocoa butter and you've bought a large purse that might be big enough to accommodate diapers, and so that they can almost pinpoint that you are pregnant and with an 87% accuracy rate and determine what trimester you're in and your approximate due date. It was a fascinating read. That I haven't finished it because I had to stop for prep for the show.
Yeah.
But this is, I guess, I wish Jeff Jarvis were here to weigh in on this.
It's called, it's called predictive buying habits, right?
Yeah, I don't think this isn't a big deal, is it? I mean, is this a big deal?
In a sick way, I can't wait for neuroscience marketing to kick in. And plenty of work is already being done on neuromarketing, and especially the work involved in the invincible consumers, the ones that can't be advertised to. Yeah. Those are the holy grail, the people that they are resilient to advertising. That now, I mean, forget subliminal advertising. That's like old-fashioned, olden days, horse-drawn carriage kind of stuff. We're talking neurological approaches to this as well, with abstract data that can all be collated just fine.
It's like the Minority Report,
At some point, I think if consumers are weirded out enough and they're pissed off enough, and we very much live in a revolt culture right now. It's all about revolution. You don't like it, revolt about it, expose it, drag it out as much as you can. It's probably going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And they'll have to find new and even more creative ways of getting the message to us.
But Eric, isn't this sort of like SOPA in that most people don't understand or care? And until they lose their Wikipedia for a day, they don't freak out about it.
Right.
It's kind of a geek
that's
issue, right?
It is a geek issue. Do the geeks have a responsibility for getting these issues in front? People can debate this kind of thing about Anonymous and some of their actions of their more rogue factions, if you will. Do they do a service by letting everybody know, by the way, your bank never got their crap together and fixed their problems, so we had to do it? You know, it's that whole weird ethical thing of we have to break into the house to say your door security thing is an utter failure.
We have to pass.
It's the black hat versus white hat hackers.
Yeah, there's like, is there a gray hat in there someplace where it's never going to get done without brute force activism like that? Hacktivism, if you will.
We have to pass this
right?
bill to find out what it does.
And even then, what difference does the bill make? Because we already saw like that what site got taken down by the Secret Service?
Yeah, it showed me.
No, the one that just happened yesterday.
No, today it was Dewjot.
Yeah, and it's back up.
Something.
Back up, no response why. It was just taken down completely by the Secret Service.
Well, by GoDaddy.
GoDaddy and whoever else.
It was GoDaddy under the orders of the Secret Service.
What they're going to do is they're going to. I mean, you never know. Like, I mean, I had a site. One of my newspapers, the site before it was a newspaper, it's Frederick County Report. I shared. I just did like a share of a story from Boing Boing, right? And I pasted the link to it and wrote a thing about it. And it was about some guy, and he was some like person who frequently filed complaints, and it was a Boing Boing story. I think I just had an embedded like an RSS feed on one of the pages or something. I mean, I didn't even know it was there. This guy filed a copyright complaint with iPower, whatever, which is an awful ISP, and you should never use them. But in my humble opinion, but they ended up shutting my site down because of this complaint, and I didn't even know it was there. I just had a link on my site to an RSS feed from Boing Boing, and this guy did takedown notices or whatever it was at the time. It was before the DMCA, but this whole thing, out of control, reactive government that just jumps on stuff. When the IRA calls, they just freak out and do whatever they say, or the MPAA. I think that what's going to end up happening is it's just going to drive all the hosting business overseas, right?
Mm-hmm.
To safe harbor countries that ironically respect the First Amendment more than the United States does. I'm not for piracy at all. I've been a victim of it. I wrote a computer game that was pirated in the 90s, but it's just you can overreact. You don't. We're throwing the baby out.
There's no due process. You don't know what the process is.
Right. The court of public opinion is so fast and so furious. The due process. There's already the things now. Is Pinterest a giant copyright infringer? Like the wholesale site altogether, one big copyright infringement. And I love Pinterest. I've used it for over a year. I easily get it. And those articles are coming in now. It's just like, whoa, slow down. Let's
site to a
think
degree.
For a
Eric, if you had the front cover of Time magazine sitting on your table,
which one? The American edition or the rest of the world edition?
Either one. If you had
I kid,
technically, if
sort
you
of.
had a magazine, like I can see your laptop screen, right? Barely. But let's say you had a magazine sitting there on your desktop. Would I be? And it was there for 30 or 40 seconds, right, where we're talking. What if you had music playing lightly in the background? Are we committing copyright violation? Should they then shut down YouTube and Google Plus because of that? I mean, if you carry it to the logical
I got my
extreme,
Game Informer right here, so we can test it out.
There you go.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that's copyrighted content. That's right on my show. I'm violating the terms of service of the Hangout on Air and YouTube and everything, right? We're committing crimes, multiple crimes as you flip through there.
Their Chicago Bulls logo, we know how the national various sports associations are very protective about their stuff.
Yeah.
I got a rendering of Jordan right here.
See,
in his Bulls jersey. Am I violating?
So busted. Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. That's the problem. I mean, we're obviously being absurd, but not really. That's the problem.
Yeah.
If you
there is, I don't know where fair use comes into this thing. The fair use clause.
Well,
So,
clearly in this specific
you're-
case, it's fair use because I'm making a satirical point, as
Right.
is Eric. But in general, it's the point. What if I were doing an interview with you and you were at a shopping mall, right? And I'm talking to you about, Jeff, let's say you, like JCPenney, I was just talking about them earlier. They've got this new pricing strategy. It's really interesting. What if I had you at a JCPenney and I'm having a conversation with you like, well, how are the new deals? Is it worth it? Is it good? Is it better than Kohl's or Belk or whatever, Sears? And there happened to be a song playing on the speaker in the JCPenney, right? I don't have rights for that. It went on for a 5-minute interview. So we heard the entire song start to finish. That's a copyright violation. I wasn't even aware of it, right? But still, and that would show up in a search about whatever. And then all of a sudden, could they take the site down because it's blatant copyright abuse? Google Plus, my stream. I'm sure that every single person who posts one of these funny cat pictures has the rights to post that. Of course not.
Sure.
I mean, every single site that's social is a massive walking technical copyright
Well,
violating
like the internet
place.
in general.
Yeah,
I mean,
the whole-
so
yeah.
I always wear an Adidas hoodie and a hat usually. And I think back to MTV back when they played music videos back in the day. A lot of hip hop videos, a lot of rock videos where there were brands on the performers. If they got mentioned in a song, always fuzzed out. And that's from the establishment creating, one-way media that's being consumed. Now everybody is doing it. Everyone's got like a Starbucks or like here's a Red Bull can, right? If I was doing a music video for MTV back in the 90s, this would be blurred out.
Yeah, because they were trying to sell it, or they probably
Right.
offered product
Right.
placement
Not- it-
and didn't want to give
Yeah,
it away.
product placement, the whole thing.
Yeah, that and you see,
Movies
you still
still
see
do
that on
that.
some
Also, now
shows. I
they-
think Food Network makes a real point to not show the brand unless it's one of their brands or somebody they have a deal with.
Right. Yeah, but also now they have such trick video techniques to blur it out really quickly that it's the technology has allowed that to take place as well. So
There's a good
It's easy.
a business opportunity. Come up with a plug-in for Vegas and Premiere Pro or whatever, Final Cut, to detect and blur out any brand names that make it look like it's not being blurred out. It just makes it unreadable, unrecognizable. Quick.
Let's wait till we hit the world of augmented reality and you can basically see things overlaid onto everything that you see. We can do it right now with camera phones, but once it's wearable and normal looking, there's a whole new world of hurt that will come with that type of advertising and copyright ownership, and should that logo even be visible to
exactly.
kids.
Indeed.
That's why I have my logo up right now.
All right, so we all agree that it was an innocent mistake by Google.
Yeah, I do.
All right,
I'll still abstain there with my skepticism.
I was being quite
Yes,
the sarcastic
for-
person there, Eric, as I'm sure you picked up on. Okay, Google, bit of a tiff here, and neither one is
With a
here
T.
to talk about it. So I don't want to. My personal view. You guys can say what you want. My personal view on this. There's a post today. I've linked to it. It'll be it's in the description of the live show, and it'll be in the description of the YouTube post. A URL, a link to all the stories we're talking about are featured prominently in the descriptions for every avenue that this show ends up being in. But Brandon Campo, who is a prominent Google Plus member, he was a recommended user, has a 250,000 followers, and there was some drama. At one point, he said he was getting death threats and deleted all of his posts, or hid them, one of the two, and I guess accused Google of not responding effectively or quickly enough, either or, to the death threats. And so it was a big thing. And then I guess that was resolved, I assume, because he began posting again. And now he's in a tiff with one of the community managers. So again, neither one of them is here. So I don't really want to talk about too much the drama between them. But one of the things that he said was that he made the point that he had talked about the death threats, alleged death threats he received, and some, I guess, kiddie porn or some sort of exploitative of kid photographs that were on Google+. And he said he asked a community manager to respond to it, and there was a delay or a diversion. and that his observation was that if you were using a nickname, they would immediately ban you. If MG Siegler puts his middle finger up in his profile picture, bam. Does it again, bam, right? Banned. But other things like, Eric Rice, I don't like your post, I'm going to murder you. That's okay for 7 hours or whatever. It does seem like an odd standard, doesn't it? What are your thoughts, Eric? I know you weighed in on this earlier with a post.
Being banned by the community manager, and that's one of my biggest things.
You're talking about blocked,
this
right?
community manager's
blocked, not
blocked.
banned. He just
right.
She personally blocked him, but then and what she said, and then she unblocked him. Go ahead.
That's shown up on my radar before, because when I heard first about a community manager blocking a user, I'm like, what? You can't do that. You might as well be customer service. You are not in a position, because it makes you look bad. And in the climate of Google getting they don't get social, well, yeah, if your community managers are blocking people, it doesn't help the case here. And so when I saw that, I just flipped out. And when I saw who was involved, I'm like, well, yeah, there you go. Yeah, sometimes part of me wants to be sympathetic and go, look at what Google is doing. If you look as a programmer at this whole product, you're like, I can't even figure out what the product document looks like on this, if there is one. Number two, their entire bonus or salary or existence is based on the success of social at Google. That's not the way you make great products. Do it or die kind of thing. Second of all, or third, I think that everybody got shoved into roles that they were like, what? People are running around. It is sheer and utter chaos over there. And that's where a lot of these mistakes are happening. So on some points, I might actually concede about the Google Safari thing, because maybe it is just an absolute goat rodeo over there. You got people thrust into jobs that they can't do and they don't know, and we got gender issues and displaying that on profile and pseudonyms and all sorts of porn. My God, there's so much porn on G+, it's hilarious. And it just goes on for weeks. It's like, this needs to be fixed, and I don't know why they aren't able to do this. Is this go all the way up to the top?
And see, I'm not aware of this at all. Go ahead, Jeff. I don't see this.
Clearly, you and I are in the wrong.
I was going to say I haven't circled the right people. Eric needs to send me to share a circle with me.
Oh, this is all incoming. That's the nice thing about having incoming, is you get a nice view of what a large chunk of people. With 15,000 people circling me, which I believe is a false number, I don't get impressed by that number at all. But when I have 15,000 people I can look at in incoming, I can see a lot of sample data.
Maybe that's why they got rid of incoming.
No, you can still get to it.
Is there a workaround? I'm not at 50. I'm like at, I don't know, 11 or 12,000 roughly. And I missed it. I didn't use it a lot, but okay. Let's stay on this. Is it a fair? What about the whole thing about their priorities? But this guy, he's complaining. I don't know him. I circled him at some point, and he circled me. So and I think I circled her. I don't know if she circled me. And I don't know either of them well enough to comment on the validity of either of their points. But I agree, it's odd that a community manager would be blocking someone, especially someone who has a 250,000 followers, who is talking about her. That seems.
Well, here's part of it though. Is it's never really been clear what the job of a community manager is.
Not to the public.
It hasn't.
Maybe to them, but not to the public.
Well, no, right, to us, and I think that's really all that matters. To be honest, it's never really been made clear to us what the job of a community manager is.
Right.
Is the community manager the person who's supposed to take trouble reports and deal with them? Is the community manager the person who is supposed to be, the front line for handling these sorts of problems? Or is the community manager the cheerleader? And it's never really been clear. I followed this particular community manager probably since my first week on Google+, which was my first week there. When, you didn't know who.
I think we lost him.
Man, he was doing so good, too. His nice, pretty picture, the whole deal. And he freezes.
Come back,
that's a classic
He got
shot.
blocked by Natalie.
Let me get a wide version of that so we can capture it later. And
has he said too much?
I think he was just nuked, right? They've just the MPAA or someone has weighed in and nuked his.
I do agree with what he was saying. What is the job? Generally, I think they're a little bit of all of that. They're the cheerleader. you know they're going to get sucked up to by everybody. Oh, Googler, right? Some people act very differently when certain Googlers show up in Hangouts and in streams. Some people are just cool. They're hanging out, doing their thing, and it's all good. Others, oh my God, let's throw rose petals on the ground in which they walk.
Yeah, you
Right.
have no
At some
idea what
point-
their metrics are, you know?
Yeah,
What-
and they're
what
a
the-
public face, though. If you're out there and you're talking, they're like a public face.
Yeah, a lot of.
You know,
I mean, it's hard with the volume. It's balancing the volume. Like as far as getting a response from someone or whatever. There are times when I've tried to communicate with a low-level Google employee and I've gotten no response. But then there a few times I've had conversations with Vic, public and private, who's a vice president there, and so it's and then also there's a problem with notifications. I know like Linda Laurie,
Yeah, they're slow.
she sometimes doesn't. She's having an issue. She's not getting a lot of notifications, and so she'll come on my. She'll manually go to my profile and find stuff where I've mentioned her, or you know, whatever, and she'll say, "Oh man, I didn't see this." So there are some issues there. But yeah, I don't know what the role of a community manager is exactly. I don't think it's been defined well.
but I think we can agree it's a very public face.
Oh yeah,
That deals with one thing, community, and that's the people. And that means for better or for worse. I've seen this ugly trend show up, and I've seen some very high profile and very notable visionaries use this where they throw a troll label on someone. This has not happened to me, but I have witnessed it in so many instances where a troll label is thrown on somebody who brings very hard dissent. Even if it's dissent that's got a little ad hominem and maybe a kind of a loosey-goosey argument, nothing that's actually like real trolling. Just that kind of flaky, sorry, they're making a really crappy point, but to call them a troll because they're dissenting and challenging your very holy and untouchable view of things, it's a very powerful thing to do.
Wouldn't you give you have to give a little kudos to the Google development team, though. I mean, look at all the stuff that they are trying to push out at a rapid pace. Even though it's not 100, you don't, understand it.
The thing is, the Google development team is different than the community managers. We're talking two very different departments.
Yeah, but they're yes, right. But I'm just trying to balance it. It's just the idea that the sheer volume of changes and things that they're doing is just, and they're trying to exponentially grow.
That's actually a great example. You want to know why? The lead developer is a gentleman whose name I will almost certainly mangle if I try to pronounce it, and it's Yongtan. Yongtan? Anyway, he is the most interactive person I have met amongst anybody on the Google Plus team. If you mention his name, you get about a 90% chance of him showing up and commenting on what you're talking about. When the real name policy was having problems, he was there and talking about it. Vic wasn't there talking about it. The community manager wasn't there talking about it. But here was a technical guy, the head technical guy, was there talking about it.
well,
Every time there are major problems and major changes, when people complain about it, he jumps in and talks about it. He is highly, highly interactive with the community, and he's a developer. He has been far more in front of everything that's been going on than any of the community managers that I know.
Yeah, but that baits the question of what is the community, what is their job task, and it's more of a piece.
That's what I just asked.
Yeah. So it sounds more like, in an organization I was in, like the sales rep, right, versus the technical person that's going to solve the problem, right, and the sales rep has no clue on how to solve a problem.
But there's certainly a steward, if you
Yes,
will. I mean, is it the users? Should the user care that a community manager and a developer are different departments? That's not my freaking problem. I'm a person. There's lots of people in the community. You're the manager of this. Things are a mess down here. Please help. And then a coder comes up. Not to discredit coders, but why is he talking to me?
Well, no, I absolutely agree, and that's the thing. I mean, to use the salesperson and sales engineer example.
Yeah.
If you've got a problem, the first person you want to talk to is you're going to talk to your salesperson, and you expect him to solve the problem, him or her. You expect your salesperson to solve the problem.
Okay,
whether or not they do
No, I
anything
totally
besides talk to the
totally
engineer.
disagree. You have a problem. You call tech support. You don't call your sales rep.
Oh, tech support. There's another great example
Yeah,
of
no, but I'm
people
just
who
saying-
don't know what
Let
they're
me give
talking
you an
about.
No, but
Hang
you know,
on,
you're
let me
going
give
on
you-
Point. You know, my point is you're going to the
But
people.
but
well,
Alan has Alan and Eric are right on one thing. Google has never ever done interaction with human beings well at all. And I think there was an anecdote somewhere out there. Remember the story? I don't know what book it was in, but Sergey. Someone said, "Well, shouldn't we respond to this complaint or question or something?" And he said, "Well, wouldn't they be happier if you just fixed it?" They've never placed a priority on interacting with their users or customers. For example, I have for various properties I spend about $300 a month on AdWords with Google. So I got this email. Congratulations, you've been selected for a personal one-on-one counseling session. And I'm actually going to do this on Monday or Tuesday. Well, no, it's a phone call. But here's what the guy said. This is what caught my eye. It was very unusual. I got an email. I forgot to respond to the initial one. It said that you call me at this number or email me and we'll set it up. Then I got this email subject. This is from Google.com from a person there on their team. It says, last chance to talk to Google about your AdWords advertising. Last chance. Okay, I give them $300 a month. Hi there, I hope you're well. I'm pleased to let you know that the personalized consultation offer for our AdWords account is still available, but time is running out. As I mentioned before, this is a free service that we are offering to selected customers. I'll be able to work one-on-one with you to improve your account performance on the mobile and display network. If you're interested in discussing changes and improvements we can make to your account, all you need to do is reply to this email by Friday, February 24th with your phone number and the best days and times for me to call you. And then the PS, it goes on. The last sentence is key. Once again, don't miss this chance to get live help from Google. I look forward to hearing from you soon. And then he says, please note that due to the high demand for this service, you must respond before Friday, February 24th. I regret that I won't be able to respond to inquiries after this date. Does anyone have any concern about a company that you're paying?
It's a sales call. It's and here that's the call of action. Call to action at the very end of a sales presentation. Limited time offer. If you don't react now.
That's a standard.
Okay,
sucker.
yeah. That's true. Just like with their ad, they send these $100 coupons out. But really, if you log in, often, I hand them out to people. I say, I already have an account. I can't use it, and they keep mailing me these things, so I hand it to people, and they always get the $100, even if it's after the date. But still, it's just the whole thing. Don't miss this. I'm putting the word in rare chance to get live help from Google. It does say that they're not good at that. They're engineers, and they've never been good at interacting with people on a live basis. I was shocked when they actually had a phone number you can call, and then I had some issue, and they couldn't answer the question. They referred me to the help files.
The truly funny thing about Google Plus is, in so many ways, they are actually getting real people in front of the public trying to talk about things. Every time there's a new release, every time there's even a minor new feature, in some cases you have to believe that it was the engineer who worked on the feature is reading the script, talking about what they did. And that's going out to everyone.
Yeah, but
contrast this with Facebook, which will make changes and not talk about it.
Exactly. Who are you comparing this to, right? So you're comparing this to a tech company when you should compare it to Facebook or some other social network, how they deal with it, right?
I think the difference, and I think they still have a lot of work they need to do on this, though. I mean, clearly this is the problem, and I think the biggest problem is that they've got these people called community managers. I think the name itself is almost offensive. Yeah. But I think they've got.
That's
these
a common name, though, isn't it?
Unclear what they do.
No, they should be called community listeners.
Well,
I mean, I do think it's a standard term in the industry, but
yeah, it is.
But I think what they do and why they're doing it isn't clear. I think there are some community managers that do a better job than others. but it's just not clear. And we can compound this by the fact that we've also got things like, developer relations people in the mix.
I mean,
so there's
I don't know if it's a benefit to have the staff wandering around. I hear that comparison a lot of, well, you get to talk to Google people, but you don't get to talk to Facebook people. I don't really care about talking to Facebook people or Google people, and especially not the guy who's building the house. Stop harassing the architect. Stop harassing the guy who's doing the roof. Let him do the roof. Talk to the other guy.
Point. That's an excellent point, but it's interesting. Every time somebody posts something, I'll be in the developer relations post, and every time they post that they're having a hangout, somebody inevitably says, "Oh, hey, can you? When are you guys going to add this other feature? And when are you going to add this other feature? And when are you going to add this other?" All of which are totally irrelevant to this person. This person has absolutely no connection at all to the people who would need to implement those features, but they're asking anyway, and they're asking because they feel like they have this personal connection to somebody at Google. And it's surprising. It's irritating. It's irritating in some ways. Somebody will then inevitably say, "Hey, don't forget to click on the send feedback button so they can actually hear you." And the usual response is, "Why? Nobody ever listens to the send feedback button." I'm like, you've got it backwards.
Yeah.
You've got it backwards. The send feedback button is the only way that they're going to hear you.
I think people view it as like one of the. It's like a call your congressman kind of thing. You're like, yeah, right. Right? There's a sense of jadedness that kind of washes over you. You're like, well, talk about just being written off. Be like, here, fill out the suggestion form and put it in the box.
Right.
I mean, I can't help but think maybe it is going someplace, but whatever. I will probably be doing better by complaining about it in public to however many thousands of people than sending it and stuffing it in a box.
Yeah.
But
no,
what
if you don't participate in the feedback program, you have no say in the matter, right?
But people don't realize that. The problem is, and this is actually another change that came in this week that we didn't cover. There's a change to the feedback system this week. And aside from the fact that you can now do some editing, the biggest change is that you can now see your old feedbacks, at least your new old feedback.
Yeah.
So the problem with the feedback system has been you kind of send off a message and it goes into this black hole.
Yeah, I don't like to be placated. I mean, I don't like to have to fill something out. Here I am doing my pressing the wrong button. Yeah, I hate that. Like, call our comment line and leave your comment. No, I want to talk to a person of influence, so I know I'm not wasting my time. I only have so many hours a day.
Does anybody notice how video game company sites are set up? I think particularly of like Blizzard Entertainment, who does Warcraft and Diablo. Obviously in game there's support mechanisms, but in the forums, the employees that are allowed to talk, they have blue posts, and there's actually sites that aggregate all of the blue posts, which is like the word on high. And they show up, make a comment, and then boom, 7,000 million, posts later, and dozens of pages later where people are debating. Sometimes that community person will show up. Maybe sometimes it's a developer. Maybe it's sometimes somebody saying, hey, we made some changes. Here's what we want. Because every single user thinks they got that special snowflake thing going on. We hear it when people are critical. Well, I would never use it, ergo, it sucks. Or well, I want this feature. And when your community is doing all of that, I mean, good grief, that feedback box must be insane to look at, with every little nitpick from people qualified and not, veterans and noobs alike, nonstop 24/7, and then it's coming at you from the other side.
But usually what they do, a large company will take that and filter it down and then say, okay, I'm going to take these high volume users that seem to know what they're talking about, and I'm going to listen to them.
Well, they do that with their Hangouts. That's the thing.
Yeah, and that's what we did. We did it in our company. We would, when we were looking at improving our product, we would distill that down to a few people that were high-end users, and then placate them and use them as a mechanism to get better product.
I guess there's advantages to both, Jeff. There's with the feedback, you get information in the aggregate. We got 12,000 complaints about this new thing we did. Maybe we need to revisit it. But with the Hangouts, you get the people who, like Alan or Eric, who would, when the developers do their Hangouts, and you can come in and speak directly with the people who design the site and have a real impact. then
But here's
so there.
the thing,
I
though,
guess it's a
Dan.
mixture of both that's important.
Here's
Yeah,
the thing, though, Dan. I mean, like I said, Brian Moe had the hangout for photographers. He could get 10 people in there at a time. He got maybe a total of, let's say, 20 or 30 people at the most. Okay? You're talking a theoretical community of 100 million.
Very theoretical.
Yeah.
30 people is a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction.
Yeah. But say, like in a previous life, I worked at a company called Interex, and that was the users group for HP worldwide. And once a year, we would send out a survey, and we would prioritize all the enhancements for their products from the user base. They would take that, and they would use that as their metric for getting the next product line out. And that worked out really, really well for both parties because it helped them prioritize what they needed to do. So when they spent their resources, they hit the sweet spot.
Let me ask you something, Jeff. I know you need to go in a minute, but let me ask you something. The results of those surveys, did you just give it to HP or did you give it back to your members as well?
We did both. We published the top 10, right? And then they went both ways.
And there's the big difference. Because in theory, Google says that every single message sent to send feedback goes into the hands of somebody, and they collect them all, they sort them to the correct departments, they summarize them, and these go into weekly reports. The problem is, we as the users don't see those weekly reports.
Right.
So we as users don't know what's being said. And that you need to have a closed feedback loop, and we don't have it. The closest thing we have right now are the messages that Vic sends out, like today, where he says, hey, we actually listened to you, and look at what we did this week.
Okay, let me real quick. We got one official topic, and then whatever you guys want to talk about. Real quick, I want to just put up our Justin chat. We got somebody said Linda's joining us in the chat room anyway. One person said on the use of the word troll. Interesting observation. Trolls becoming meaningless through rampant misuse as an intimidation tool. I guess it's been watered down a bit. It's not as shocking as it used to be. And then Linda, I guess some folks are having a problem getting this chat to load. A couple people have said that, and it took me a while in the third-party window. And then community managers are part of a team. As part of the team, they do have to involve the Google department that oversees whatever the issue is. That is why they have to refer you to someone else. And then I'm responding to the length of time. And then Linda mentioned that she recalled that Natalie mentioning that she gets so many mentions that she sometimes has to go through them in her email, and it takes a few days just to get through them. Sometimes So that's a valid point that these guys are overwhelmed, but it's
No, that's not a valid point.
I mean, it's
that just means that you need more of whatever these people are supposed to be doing to do this job.
Yeah, it's the job description. Don't complain about being a soldier in a war and you're complaining about bullets. That's what the job is.
Well, I'm saying that's Google's problem. That's not Natalie's problem, right? And I don't know Natalie at all. I think I interacted with her once or twice, or I think one time, and she referred me to another person. But if Google doesn't have enough of these people, that's Google's problem. That's not her problem, right? And to say that you're not responding quick enough to me and it's your fault, it could be Google's fault. Or
you have that one soldier take that hill, There's
yeah,
1,000 people up there sniping.
Well, here's what it boils down to. If you need a community manager to be handling problems, then either you need more community managers to handle the problems, or you need to fix the problems, or you need to automate the response to these problems in some way that actually gives people feedback. Or you need a combination of this. Because right now, essentially having one person that does all of the work, it's not going to work.
Well,
and if you've got
they are. They are the technology company, and they know how to use all these algorithms to come up with all these searches. I'm sure they could parse out something for the feedback to help.
Linda makes an excellent point.
The best point that's been made tonight. Go ahead, Alan.
Right, which is the one that we keep saying. She just said, try getting someone at Facebook to respond to you, and she laughs about it. Yeah. And she's right. But the thing is, in a lot of cases, on Facebook, you don't care. You don't either you don't have the same source of problems, or they're dealing with it in some other way.
Yeah.
It boils down to, if we need a person to deal with these problems on Google Plus, then either we need to have a person deal with the problems on Google Plus correctly, or we need more people, or something.
Are we treating are the community managers instructors and PR people or tech support people?
Who knows?
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
because
the community
don't
makes
know.
that decision.
Yeah.
If they are out there on the same playing field that we are, with the same tools that we are, sometimes it's maybe social is not the best support thing in the world. The users, I can't stress it enough, it's the users that make the rules. The community makes the rules. No algorithm can dictate what the crowd will do. Google didn't wake up one day and say, you know what, we want to make a Brazilian and Indian social network and we'll call it Orkut. No, it happened. And if the users are going to treat you like a customer service rep and tech support and feedback loop, you got to know that going into it. Again, this is not a small company. This is the 4th attempt at social for Google. And this has been done, and plenty of books have been written on community management. For years, this is not a surprise. Not for a company as awesome as Google. And Google also had the reputation, and this is one thing, incidentally, I think is part of what made the NIM wars so explosive, is Facebook is the company that goes, we did some changes. And the users go, no. And Facebook's like, screw you. Google was the opposite of that. Google had established a precedent. They did something and it was wrong, and they're like, you know what? We totally messed up. We're sorry. Let's fix this. And we're like, wow, they're the good guys. And when Plus showed up, all of that went all over the place. And you had such a very political, rigorous standing of ground, almost just stubbornness displayed by some of the Google people. It was like, whoa, why the Facebook all of a sudden, Google? And the first thing that we saw that on was the NIM wars. So you start packaging all that up together, and you see it now, all these little issues. Now it's just no one's in control. People are running around in circles, bumping into each other. They can't keep up with it, and that's tarnishing their previously good reputation, their good citizen standing, if you will.
Yeah.
Because it probably just got too big and they weren't ready for it. They couldn't scale. Most companies have to worry about, we can't scale our servers. They couldn't scale the humanity of the technology.
Eric, I think, makes an excellent point here. And, I'm sure that doesn't surprise Dan, because he knows my stand on some of these things.
Yeah, I think on the whole thing, on the community manager, I think that I would view that as sort of a community advocate. In other words, someone I could go to and say, hey, I'm having an issue here, and I don't know what to do about it, or the regular channels aren't helping. Can you assist? And if that is their role in part, then they need to have more of them if they can't adequately respond. And some of the complaints in this specific situation with this gentleman versus this community manager in this TIFF or SPAT or whatever you want to call it were a time delay, and I think it goes back to the priorities of Google. I think if he's pointing out if he was indeed getting death threats, or if he's seeing photos of children being exploited, and he notifies once the first.
It wasn't just him. It wasn't just him seeing these photos. I mean, they had to create a group. I think this was even before Pages. They had to create a group of people who were keeping their eye out on things and publicly posting when they saw such things, and trying to communicate to anybody, when they saw things that they felt were in violation of the terms of service, that they felt were
there should be a
clearly in
mechanism.
violation
The
of terms
first
of
time the
service.
first Google employee hears about something like that, there should be a quick mechanism for them to alert whoever has the authority to make a judgment call and shut that account down. It should be a matter of minutes.
Right, and you would think, the problem is, it's not clear who to go to take that kind of action.
That's an issue. Now, again, it's still in beta, and they're working this stuff out. But still, if MG, we can only use that excuse so many times. If MG Siegler puts his middle finger up, as I said earlier, or if you log in with an account prisoner or whatever it was, and you got banned early on, and you had to come back in with a protest account, and now all that's apparently worked itself out. But then you can put pictures of kids being exploited. There's a problem there.
We're not even sure how well it's worked itself out. There's still problems going on.
True.
But fortunately, there's been a big enough stink about it that people that are high enough up are involved.
Yeah, and all these things, as much of a probably I would guess a bit of a pain in the ass Brandon is to them. He makes these interesting points, and it causes them to stop and reassess things, and that's the reason we're talking about it. So. There isn't. I got to tell you, as Linda said, Facebook, and someone else said, and what about Twitter? Try to, try to get a response from Twitter on anything. I've never gotten a response from Facebook or Twitter, any employee about anything ever. And although I haven't,
I'll tell you something. Facebook when my whole pseudonym issue, Facebook responded to my request for the name that I got there within 24 hours. Google took weeks to, back and forth to reject me for a name that Facebook approved me on within 24 hours.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And then if you know someone at Google, you have no problem.
Here's the thing. Linda just said, my understanding is if you report something as child abuse, that's something that is considered a priority in the report options. Okay? One would think so. And in fact, another person in our chat said the same thing. One would certainly hope so. The problem is that appeared to not be the case.
Yeah, I think I would welcome. I'd love to get some more information on the specifics of this. I would welcome. I found out about this right before the show. I didn't have an opportunity, but if Natalie wants to come on the show and
I remember when the event was happening, and obviously I was not off looking for those posts myself because I believe I was in the middle of the Nimwar issues at the time, and I didn't want them to come up with another excuse to ban me. But I remember a lot of this happening at the time, and it was over the course of several days. People were reporting the exact same account, and people were passing around to each other saying,
"It went on for days.
Go report this account."
It went on for days.
It went on for days.
This is insane. And you're a first-hand witness. You saw this, so it's not like you're hearing speculation. But then, like I said, MG Siegler puts his middle finger up. He gets banned, right away, and then does it again, then banned again. But that's an issue. And this is Brandon is a prominent user. He was on the recommended user list. He's got 250,000 followers. This happened after he was made very prominent about the death threat thing. So he was certainly on their radar screen. So it's not as though, and he said he, contacted several people, and I think it was 7 hours, or I forget what he said, but read the post. It's interesting. And
yeah. I mean,
maybe this is how things get done. Maybe the reason why you don't talk to people at Twitter is because if something's bad enough, everyone makes enough noise, Twitter's forced to respond. Facebook is forced to respond when enough people make enough noise. Maybe that is our method of widespread support is, look, sending feedback's not going to work, so just get a bunch of friends to reshare it and pound down their door.
Yeah, if he had quietly sent feedback, would we be talking about this on the show? No, we would not.
This goes back to what you were talking about at the beginning of the show with the internet's response to SOPA, PIPA, and ACTA. The same kind of thing. It sounds like that's what you're saying, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, all of that makes sense. Things like Occupy make to me. It's not necessarily going to functionally get something done, but 2,000 cities ain't too shabby as far as the awareness department goes.
Okay, and then I see a couple comments on Google Plus real quick on one of the player things. John Hanlon, yeah, he makes a good point. Those sites that suddenly drop off the internet scare me. Could your site or my site be next? Who decides on the whole question of the government appearing to haphazardly be shutting sites down? And I'm still not convinced that they're going to win the mega upload case, although I think they were blatantly tolerating it. But then again, what's the definition of tolerating copyright infringement? As I said, all of us have copyrighted cat pictures up and down our stream all the time.
Exactly which site it was. And the fact that it involved the Secret Service, that's a very different spin on things. And from what I was reading about this site, what they do is they host forum type stuff.
Forum?
And forms, web forms. And apparently one of their biggest problems, and they admit this is a big problem that they have, are scammers and phishers running phishing scams off of their site. And they do a lot of work to try to detect these as quickly as they can and shut them down. Their own stats say that last year they had 65,000 phishing sites that they host that they shut down because of their own monitoring.
Look, I think it's like a phone company, man. I could call you up and I could say, let's discuss on the phone about robbing a bank, or I could mail you a letter saying, let's go.
But
are they going to shut the phone company down because
Yeah.
two people did this without the phone company's knowledge?
Right. Here's the thing. It does sound like that the Secret Service overreacted in this case, but the fact that we're talking about the Secret Service, which means that it involved banks. So, it involved banks. The company itself admits that there are sometimes phishing scams going on with them that they try to shut down. When the whole thing started going down, the first thing they did is they called the phone number that they were given at the Secret Service, and they said, look, let us get our site back up. If you've got questions about a user, we will give you any information you want to know about a user. If you think there is a phishing operation going on, if there is a scam going on, we will help you however you want us to. And the person on the other end of the phone said, I'm busy this week. Let me give you a call back next week.
Yeah, I could tell. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the Secret Service. Having covered President Obama when he was a senator and as president, and watching two Warren County residents waltz into a state dinner without an invitation, I can tell you I'm not impressed with them. And I find some are great, wonderful, brave people, but there are some real arrogant jerks in there, and that are just.
I mean, we got to remember
mindless
the Secret
goons.
Service does two very different, very strangely different tasks. I mean, they're charged with the government protection detail, and they're charged with banks and counterfeiting.
Right. That's how they began. I think it was under Lincoln.
Right. I mean, so it's two very different sides of the same organization. I have a feeling the part of the organization in this case was the banks and counterfeiting part.
Perhaps.
And I don't know what was going on with that.
Okay. I guess we got one official topic left, and that is Eric Schmidt is selling. He has even more stock than Alan and Eric do combined. He has 2.8% of Google. He's going to sell, I think, 0.6% of Google stock. 0.7% he's going to sell. So that's worth $1.5 billion, which is a chunk of change. Anybody have any clue, any speculation on this? This is obviously
my guess,
I wish I had a
my
billion
guess
and a half
on
to
this
sell.
is that he. My guess on this is that he and Zuck are at a poker game tonight, and they're going down to see who's going to come out on top.
He's got to have a plan,
And,
right? I mean, he's not going to take a tax hit like that. He's got to be on the verge of investing it in something else, right? Why would you pull it out?
I'm sure he does.
How do you not think that maybe it might not be a good time because there's a lot of scrutiny coming your way? Technology is in the sights of the American government. I mean, the whole Google Apple thing, or actually, no, this was the whole path address book Apple thing. Bam, letter from Congress. That was quick. Wow. Nice to see them moving on things quickly. Might not be the right things, but they moved quickly to send a letter to Apple.
So you think it's just you think it's preemptive diversification in case something happens?
I don't know. I just don't know. Yeah, I don't know, but there's so much going on now that we're all going to be sniffing around SEC filings and things like that while the FTC is over here. Maybe it's diversionary, maybe there's a reason, maybe I just don't even know anymore. Can't even speculate properly.
Yeah, we'll be snooping. we have way too much free time, especially Alan.
Well, I think the official term is watchdog, but
True.
Yeah.
Alan, what do you think?
Wait a minute. I want to know where Oleg is tonight. What task do you have him
No,
on
Oleg
tonight,
is
Dan?
he tried to join via mobile. He has some family situation going on. He was going to be late, but then he had to try to join with his phone. He couldn't. Maybe because it was an on-air hang. Had I known in advance, I would have done a regular hangout, so he could have joined because he's such a hoot.
Uh-huh.
But you joined from a boat last week, right?
Yes, I did.
In Cape Cod or something.
But that was on my laptop. What was
it
it?
Cape Cod? Where were you?
Technically, it was in Vineyard Sound,
What state?
off the coast of Massachusetts.
Okay. And then Oleg, I don't know where he is. He's somewhere on the West Coast.
He's on the other
East Coast, West Coast.
Over here, West Coast.
All right. Yeah, it's early over there for you, right? It's about 7 o'clock, 7:06.
It's merely 7 p.m. The night is
That's
young.
it. Any final thoughts about Google Plus this week before we conclude the program? Either of you guys? Eric?
You know, for those of us that pay attention to technology, it's part of what we have to do, even if we don't like it. You know, I'm a big supporter of, look, if you don't get something, we'll figure it out. Read something, get it. Those words are fundamentally not able to be in my vocabulary. And, you know, always do the things you don't get. Always do the things that you don't like.
Alan, any final thoughts? Any words of wisdom to impart?
I'm pondering this, always do the things you don't like, and wondering if that's why we're on Google Plus so much.
Yeah, seriously. Upgrade your Facebook
profound,
wall.
Eric. I got to think about that one for a bit.
Go clean up your Facebook wall.
I had the neatest. I saw the neatest post yesterday. I saw it on Twitter, but they posted on Google Plus too. At the White House, First Lady Michelle Obama surprised the tour, and the tour was going through the White House, and so they streamed it live. It's on the White House whitehouse.gov website, but she stood there with Bo the dog, and met for like 70 minutes or something. Whoever was coming through the tour, just, hey, how you doing? I'm Michelle, you know, welcome to the White House. And they were freaking out, the visitors, but the adults, the kids handled it better, but the adults were freaking out. It was funny, but she was hugging the little kids. It was neat. It was watching the reactions. It was pretty cool, just to go on the regular White House, you know, the nickel tour, and all of a sudden there's Michelle Obama and Bo, the famous dog. So that was kind of cool. I saw that. I was watching that online, and yeah, I mean, they're innovating, and there's some stuff that we've discussed, but you know, we love the service, and we say all any criticism, you know, is with affection among friends, but it's definitely come a long way from July. I remember that. I know that for sure. But anyway, I want to appreciate Alan and Eric and the other folks, Jeff and Harold, who are with us. Oleg will be back next week, and I'm sure he'll be chiming in the comments with some tersely worded observations, we hope. But I want to thank everybody so much for watching, and we will see you next week with another edition of Google Plus Week.